The secret tunnels of palaces, the hidden secret weapon of kings. It was the third watch of the night. Outside the fort walls, the enemy's torches were burning, and inside the palace every face was terrified. The doors were closed, the paths were cut off, but the king suddenly vanished. In the morning, when the enemy opened the fort and looked, the throne was empty. A part of the treasure was also missing, and some important documents were not found either. The only question was, where did the king go? People looked at the walls, checked the cellars, searched the back areas of the temples, but the answer was not above the ground. The real path lay hidden beneath the palace, in the darkness, between the stones. This is the very mystery that turned India's old forts and palaces into not just beautiful structures but living war machines. But were these tunnels really meant only for escaping? Even today, stories of such tunnels are heard in many old forts of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and across India. Somewhere it is said that the path went to the forest, somewhere to the river, and somewhere to another fort. But the most interesting thing about history is that every story is not fully proven. Some tunnels truly exist, remnants of some are found, and some still breathe in folklore today. Yet one thing is clear: the paths that the old kings had built under the ground were not merely the product of fear. They were part of power, security, treasure, espionage, and warfare strategy. Look at the fort from the outside, and it looks like a stone wall. But from the inside, that same fort was an entire system, where every door, every turn, and every dark path had its own purpose. First of all, understand that war in that era was not a matter of a few hours or a few days like today. Many times, sieges lasted for months, and the real battle began with hunger before the sword. The enemy army would surround the fort from all sides. Food grains could not come from outside, the water sources were monitored, and the patience of the people sitting inside would gradually begin to break. At such a time, opening the main gate of the fort could be like surrendering. But if there was a hidden path under the ground, even a losing game could suddenly turn around. This was the first big reason for secret tunnels: a safe exit. The king, the royal family, the commander, or important officials could exit through these paths and reach a safe place. But notice, this escaping was not always a weakness. Many times, the survival of the king was like the survival of the entire kingdom, because if the king remained alive, the army could reorganize. That is why the other end of the tunnel did not open at an ordinary place. It could be a forest, a hillside, a riverbank, a temple complex, or a place where the enemy would not suspect. Now the second part of the story is even more interesting. If the king could escape, the treasure could also be saved. And in old kingdoms, treasure was not just wealth, it was power. Gold, silver, gems, royal seals, land documents, war treaties, and secret letters. All these were the backbone of the kingdom. If the enemy captured these, half the victory would be won without a war. In many forts, cellars and hidden chambers were built with this very thinking. The paths leading to them were not open, and information about them remained limited to very few people. Imagine, a war is going on outside, and inside, a few trustworthy people are taking the treasure to a safe place through a dark path. The enemy is breaking the wall, but the real wealth has already been moved. This was the reason why secret routes were not just military paths. They were also financial security routes, where the wealth of the kingdom could be made to disappear in times of crisis. The third reason was connected to the quietest need of power: secret conversations. Not every room in the palace was safe, because even walls were believed to have ears. What was said in the court often reached the outside. Ministers, servants, messengers, merchants, and guests all came with their own interests. In such a situation, the real decisions often did not happen in the open court. The king sometimes had to talk to the commander about a war plan, sometimes to a messenger about a secret treaty, and sometimes to a royal family about a political marriage or an alliance. If these talks leaked out, the kingdom could fall into danger. Therefore, the arrangement of secret chambers is believed to exist in some forts and palaces. To reach such rooms, hidden routes were used so that the people coming and going would not be noticed. A small question arises here. If secret meetings took place within the palace itself, why was a tunnel needed? The answer is because the real threat, many times, was not from the enemy, but from one's own people. In politics, trust was the most expensive thing. A single piece of information reaching the wrong ear could decide a defeat even before the war. Therefore, the more hidden the path, the safer the decision. Now comes the fourth reason, and it makes the story even deeper: the espionage system. In ancient and medieval kingdoms, spies were not just part of a story, they were an important tool of governance. Spies brought information about the enemy army's numbers, routes, weapons, food stores, and internal conflicts. A single correct piece of information could save the lives of thousands of soldiers. But the question was, how would these spies enter the palace? If they came through the main gate, the guards would see. If they came into the court, rumors would spread. That is when hidden paths came in handy. Tunnels could become the silent highways of secret messages. Messengers would come at night, give information, and leave without any noise. From the outside, everything looked normal, but inside, the strategy would have changed. Sometimes, this very information decided the direction of the war. Which gate the enemy would attack, from which hill they would bring the cannon, or which chieftain could betray. These things were the difference between life and death. Now the fifth reason is the most cinematic. Tunnels were not used just for defense, they could be used to attack as well. The army sitting inside the fort could suddenly come out and surprise the enemy. Imagine, the enemy has been keeping an eye on the main gate for months. They feel that the people in the fort are trapped. Just then, a small troop of soldiers suddenly attacks from the rear direction. Even if this attack was not big in numbers, its impact was huge. The enemy lines would break, confusion would spread, and the army would feel that there was another way into the fort. In war, fear does not always come from the sword. Sometimes fear comes from the fact that it is not even known from where the enemy will emerge. Secret tunnels became a part of this very psychological warfare. But one important point needs to be understood here. To assume that every tunnel was several kilometers long is not correct. Some paths could be small, some went down to cellars, and claims about some have been told with exaggeration. Over time, folktales keep growing longer. A closed path becomes a tunnel going to another city generations later. But this does not mean that the history of tunnels is false. Their real magic lies right between the truth and the story. Some tunnels are proof of engineering, some are a sign of the security system, and some show us both the fear and the mind of that era. Building a tunnel in old forts was no easy task. Cutting stone, arranging for air, avoiding dampness from water, hiding the path and preventing it from collapsing, all this demanded major planning. Today we build underground structures with cement, machines and modern tools. But in that era the artisans had experience, calculation, and a deep understanding of local geography. They knew which soil was loose, which stone was strong, where water would seep and at what angle it would be safe to take the path. This was not just a royal hobby. In the design of the tunnels, secrecy was just as necessary as strength. If the path was built but news of it spread, the entire purpose was lost. Therefore, strict watch was kept on workers, guards, and courtiers. Many times it is said that information about such paths was known only to the king, a few trustworthy soldiers, and special officials. No matter how much the truth is, the logic is strong. If a secret path is known to everyone, it does not remain a secret. Now think, how terrifying it must be to walk in such long and dark paths. The light of a torch, trapped air, stone walls, and the sounds of war above. A question at every step, will the path open ahead or death? That is why tunnels were not for ordinary people. They were an extreme arrangement made for the hour of crisis. They were used not for everyday convenience but on the last or a special occasion. In many forts of India, closed doors, descending stairs and dark corridors are visible even today. In many places, they have been kept closed for security reasons because there can be a danger of collapse, suffocation or losing the way inside. Archaeology experts also often work with caution. It is not easy to open every closed path. Sometimes the structure is weak, sometimes the direction inside is not clear, and sometimes the safety of the people becomes the biggest priority. But whenever any such path is seen, the same old question returns to people's eyes. Did this really go somewhere far away? Did some king ever exit from here? There was another aspect to these tunnels, the safety of the royal women and family. At the time of war, not just the king, but the entire royal family was in danger. Falling into the hands of the enemy could become a political humiliation. Therefore, safe exit routes were necessary for the royal family as well. Some routes could be connected to the inner parts of the palace, so that people could be removed without public commotion. Sometimes these paths opened near religious places or structures that looked ordinary. This was their strength. Where the enemy looked for the king, the path would not be found there. Secret tunnels also had an impact on the planning of cities. The connections between forts, water sources, temples, forests and hills were not merely religious or geographical. Many times they were also part of security thinking. If water ran out inside the fort, no army could hold out for long. Therefore, some hidden passages could also be useful to reach water sources or to save a supply route. Here again, caution is necessary. The story of every fort is different, and the work of every tunnel could be different too. But this very diversity shows that kings did not think of security in just one way. In some places, tunnels were a direct way out. In some places, they were connected to cellars. In some places, they might have been for guard movement or secret chamber access. A single word tunnel hides many types of structures. This is the reason why when we say not just for escaping, the real matter unfolds. These paths were the hidden infrastructure of running a kingdom, exactly the way data centers, command rooms, and secure networks are today. Today's governments keep confidential files, secure bunkers, and encrypted communication. In that era, stone, darkness, and silence were the encryption. Only the one who knew the path understood the message. But the greatest strength of these tunnels lay perhaps not in their use, but in the fear of them. If the enemy knew that there were paths beneath the fort, they could never be fully confident. They would keep thinking, what if the king escaped? What if the army emerged from behind? What if the treasure was moved? What if some spy came into our camp and returned? This uncertainty itself was the invisible wall of defense. War is fought not only on the ground but in the mind too. Secret tunnels were part of that mental war, where hiding information was a weapon and hiding the path was a weapon too. With time, the era of kings passed away. Grass grew on the walls, doors rusted, and many paths filled up with soil. But the stories of the tunnels did not end, because they take us into a world where another palace lay hidden beneath every palace. Above was music, the court, and royal life. Below was fear, strategy, and the path of destiny. Today, when a tourist sees the door of a closed tunnel in some old fort, they do not see just stone. They feel that perhaps history might have taken a turn through this very path. It is possible that in that darkness, some king's breathing might have quickened. It is possible that some spy might have brought news that changed the war. It is possible that some treasure might have been saved at the last moment. And it is possible that some stories might just be stories. But the beauty of history is exactly this, that it forces us to think by standing us between proof and imagination. The real mystery of secret tunnels is not in their length, but in their thinking. They show that old kings did not just build high walls, they also built unseen exits, hidden routes, and backup plans. A strong fort was not the one whose walls were the highest. The truly strong fort was the one which, even after being surrounded, could think, could hide, and could strike back at the right moment. This is the reason why the tunnels built beneath palaces are called the greatest secret weapon of kings. They were not swords, but they came in handy before the sword. They were not an army, but they could save the army. They were not the court, but they could be the witness to the biggest decisions. They were not treasure, but they could make the treasure disappear. They were a path, but many times that very path could save the entire kingdom. So next time when you see a closed dark door in some old fort, do not consider it just an old stone. Perhaps behind it lies that path where fear and power once walked side by side. And perhaps this might be the place where history wrote its most silent decision, not above, but beneath the ground.
If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible, but in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.